Hello, welcome back to Math Time with Professor Prime, and I am your host as always, Professor Prime. And welcome to my Math in the World series, the series where I talk about how math is used in and connects to different subjects, different fields, different mediums, different franchises, different interests of mine, different interests of other people. I've been having a blast with each video that I've done in that series, and I'm here today to do another one. One of the ones that I've done in the past is math in gaming, and I had an absolute blast with that. And each of the topics that I discussed in that video could easily be a video of their own, and that's what's happening today. So I wanted to expand on math in gaming, and I wanted to talk about math in combat, or math in combat systems. So that whole deal, because math does show up a lot, and it's kind of crazy, and it varies from game to game, genre to genre, but it's insane. So I wanted to talk about how math is used in a couple of genres when it comes to combat, and use a couple games as examples because it can get kind of insane, especially these days. So let me take it away. Go. All right. So there are many genres in gaming, and so yeah, you have a lot of variety. But in a lot of genres and in a lot of games, you're overcoming some obstacle, right? And that obstacle is usually the form of some enemy. And combat is important to a lot of gaming. And when I think about how math is used in that, it gets kind of crazy. And so I will talk about a couple genres and a couple games, like I said before. And I want to start by talking about RPGs, partially because I'm on an RPG kick right now, but also because math is used all over the place in them. It's used a lot in them. And especially in JRPGs, it gets kind of advanced, kind of wacky, usually good ways. So, of course, there's a lot of math that goes into the programming with these, but I talked about that in the other video. So let's get into RPGs and how math is used within the combat systems. So, it varies game to game, but a lot of the times, you'll have your character and they'll level up. And so that's one way to start. You're leveling up is you go through the game and you defeat different enemies, you do different quests. And that level in most games is indicated by a number. Back in the old days, you could get up to 99 a lot, which is kind of weird. But there are reasons for that. But nowadays, you'll see 100 a lot. And that's you maxing out things. And as you're progressing, yes, your level is displayed. You can see that. But with that level, you get there by gaining experience and points. So, as you're slaying your enemy and doing all this and that, you're building up that experience. And that's displayed usually by a number or, a gauge that depicts the same sort of information. But either way, that's math. And that's pretty cool. And then with each level, right, you increase your stats, and stats are big in RPGs. So what type of stats? It depends on your game, but typically you'll see your health, your magic, your attack, your defense. So you'll see things like that. And with different mechanics in different games, like I said, they'll add to that. Like for Final Fantasy, for instance, a lot of those games have, yes, your HP, your MP for the magic, and for the stats to go a little deeper, they have strength, they have vitality, spirit, magic, luck, speed, all that. And so those things change and progress during the game. And that's pretty cool. And sometimes that happens through experience, but it could also happen through items that you use to power up, or gear that you equip, and that impacts how you interact with enemies in the game, and I think that's pretty cool. And then there's another element to it because if you're dealing with a turn-based RPG, you're going back and forth, and so you have to anticipate like how much damage could you potentially take on a turn that isn't yours. How much damage are you going to dish out on a turn that is yours? And you have to like look at the different characters that you have. Well, how much can they output damage wise? How much can they take? What kind of moves are you using? And if you're in a game that use status effects, which is unfortunately a lot of them, then that affects things too, because you have some things that might slow you down, things that might make you more susceptible to damage, but at the same time, you can negate those effects, or you can um, have items to heal yourself after they've already gotten to you, or at least lessen them. And so I think that's kind of crazy. And when you're thinking about items that do that, you have to get into resource management because, right, like you're out there, you're defeating enemies, right? You're gaining experience from that, and typically you're gaining money, and that could be in whatever currency that world gives. And so when you're looking at that money, you're like, well, what do I want to spend that on? Do I want to spend that on like some healing items, some items that negate status effects? Do I want to buy new weapons? And you want to see where you're at in the game and what kind of enemies are around you. It's like, hey, I could really use the boost now, or maybe I'm okay for a while. You really want to like figure that out. So you have to figure out how much you want to spend your money, and if you're, or sorry, you want to figure out how you spend your money, and if you do buy items, you want to see like how much do you get, how far can you spread it out, and if you're like me, you're probably hoarding up some money and seeing what you could do. And yeah, so there's a lot that goes into these sort of things. And if you're real time, you don't have to worry about what happens on a turn that isn't yours because there is no turn, but you still have a lot that's going on. Because it's like, well, can I defeat this enemy before they defeat me? Can I set up other characters on my team to do that with me? And it's kind of crazy. So it's like, well, how much items am I using? Or sorry, how many items are you using per battle? And all that good stuff. So, like I said, and this sort of stuff goes on a lot in RPGs, and JRPGs have some of the most advanced combat systems. And recently, I've been playing the Kingdom Hearts series, and like looking at how that combat evolves over time is kind of interesting. Like, cause some of it's just like basic, where it's like, okay, I need to see how strong my character is in comparison to other ones. And yes, there's power ups, and yes, there's this and that, but it's pretty basic. But even pretty basic with these sort of things are kind of advanced in their own right at this point. Like, because we're 2020 at the time of this recording, a lot has changed. But so that was like the first Kingdom Hearts, and then like you jump right ahead to the second one, and now they got reaction commands, and so you have to make sure you get those in time, and then a lot of other things happen where it's like, okay, so you're leveling up and you have even more abilities than you have had in the last game. And so, at each level, just like in the last game, you have, ability points that you get, and you can spend them on different abilities. And so you have to decide what you want to do. It's like, is this worth it? Because I might not have enough to get every single ability. And then in Kingdom Hearts 3, it gets even more insane because now you're doing all the stuff that you did before, but you have more options available to you on the screen. So you have reaction commands like you do in 2, but like they're timed, and so it's like, okay, so I'm fighting this enemy, can I hit that in time? And in some cases, like, well, is it worth it? Because it might take up some more time to like watch that all up play out. You might want to rush ahead, but most of the time like they're pretty helpful. So you might want to consider, hey, can I get to a place where I can press this button so I can get this reaction command to work before I get taken out? So yeah, you have all that sort of stuff. And meanwhile, you're seeing all the information on the screen that conveys something to you. You got your health and your magic and all that good stuff. And like on a stat screen, you can see the actual numbers play out. And battle screen, you see a gauge that conveys that same information. So it gets pretty interesting, and I don't think I could ever do these systems like justice. But just like talking about how math is like used in them, you start to see that it's all over the place. It's informative, and you can strategize, and you're making really quick decisions. And you jump back over to Final Fantasy. If you're looking at the remake, like I think it's so amazing because it takes like the combat from Final Fantasy VII, which already had an amazing combat system, and expands on that because it's like it's real time, so you have to make a lot of decisions really quickly, and you have to have the right gear. You have to have the right material, and when you're looking through the material, you're like, well, I only have so many slots in my equipment. So what makes things the best for me? And you can just strategize about that. And wow, yeah, math and RPGs could easily be its own video. But I did want to talk about some others, but I don't want these to get too long. So I'll say like in fighting games, you see a lot of math because you see it in like your health. If you have some sort of magic gauge, you'd see it in that. You see it in the amount of combos that you can do, how much damage that dishes out, and in action and adventure game, you see it a lot in there, and it kind of fuses a lot of elements from a lot of different genres. But if we talk about an action adventure game, or in this particular case, an action adventure game that happens to be a hack and slash, I think it gets kind of crazy. And I think like the prime example is Devil May Cry. Because Devil May Cry is a pretty awesome series, and it's very, very intricate when it comes to combat, and there's a lot of math in that too. Because it's like, right, like, the idea is like I'm going around, I'm fighting my enemies. I have my melee weapons, I have my shooting weapons, or long range, whatever you prefer. And the idea is like, I also have a devil trigger to consider, and I'm trying to fill up that gauge. So I have a way to indicate that gauge, and I'm looking, it's like, okay, so I'm at 0%, and now I'm at 50%, and now I'm at 100, and it's like, well, what do I want to do with that? When do I use it, right? Because it allows me to take less damage, it allows me to dish out more damage. It's like, do I want to save that? Do I want to use that? I have to figure that out during the battle, and I have to look at that information and make a quick decision. And then when it comes to the combos, I could do a lot of different combos, right? A lot of different strikes, and in some cases, I'm pausing in between strikes to do a certain combo, so I have to time that, and I have to be aware of that, and I have to be aware of my health. I have to be aware of the enemy's health, and there's that whole resource management angle again, because I can buy different items, I have different power-ups, and in Devil May Cry, one of the cool things that you could do is like you can build up your style ranking, and you build that up by doing different combos, and the more intricate the better, and taking as much damage. uh, Sorry, taking at. Oh God, you want to not take that much damage, as least as possible. Wow, that was clunky. But the idea is like you don't want to take that much damage, preferably none. And as you're building up your combos and you're not taking damage, your style ranking increases, and that increases the kind of rewards that you can get, whether they be like red orbs or green orbs. And the red orbs are used for buying stuff, the green orbs are used for healing. And there's math and all that too. And as you build up in the game, you never stop using that. And if you can't defeat an opponent, you go back. You get more orbs, you power up more, you get better with your timing. All this stuff is important. And with the melee, they deal more damage. But if you're mixing in like the long range attacks, they can help with some of the style rankings if you're careful, if you're doing the right thing. And that's just like the surface level stuff, because like certain characters have different sort of abilities. Like Dante has a a way to switch his styles, and like that's something that you see since Devil May Cry 3. And so he has a swordmaster, gunslinger, royal guard, trickster, and all that. And those are the four main ones, and they give him different things. And there's a lot of math and all that too. And in the fifth one, it gets so insanely complicated in a beautiful way. There's something that happens that I don't want to spoil here because it actually plays into the story, but there's a thing that takes that combat to the next level. And yeah, so there's a lot more that I could say here because, like, there's a lot of games out there that have combat systems and that use math as a result. And it's kind of crazy because, like, you use math to build up the worlds, you use math in the worlds, and you use math to build yourself up in those worlds. And I think this might be my longest video, and I could easily just like keep on going because, again, it shows up everywhere. But I am going to bring the video to a close and just say that math is everywhere. It's very much in gaming. It's very much in the combat systems of said gaming, and I think that's a beautiful thing. I'll see you all in the next video.